After packing, she lay in bed, hugging her pillow. The memory of Melvin holding her close at the party flashed in her mind. Then the kiss on the cheek. And the wedding. She couldn't wait to buy her own phone and download every photo, every video. Even if it was all pretend, she would hold on to it forever. That night, she dreamt Melvin confessed his love to her. She woke up smiling. But it was 2 a.m., and she knew sleep wouldn't come again. She got ready, brushed her teeth, took a bath, and made breakfast for them both. Then she sat with her suitcase, waiting quietly in the living room. More than an hour passed. She contemplated knocking on Melvin's door to wake him. But what if it annoyed him? What if he changed his mind and told her to stay behind? Just as she resolved to wait in silence, Melvin emerged from his room with his suitcase in hand. He paused at the sight of her. "Good morning, sir," Anita greeted with a bright smile. Melvin blinked, surprised. "You're already up." She nodded. "I didn't want to make us late." He glanced at the table, noticed the set plates, and lifted one lid. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "Did you get any sleep at all?" Anita replied softly, "I did, sir. Just a little." He gave a quiet nod and gestured toward the dining table. "Come, let's eat." After breakfast, they left for the airport. Anita's heart was pounding the whole time. This was her first flight, first class, no less, and to her surprise, Melvin didn't send her to economy. He treated her like his equal, sitting beside her, answering her questions without impatience. Meanwhile, Jasmine finally received the phone call she'd been waiting for. She gripped her phone tighter and smirked. The caller had confirmed Melvin's flight to Paris. She immediately began packing her bags. "Going somewhere?" Daniel asked, walking into the room. "My childhood friend is getting married in Michigan," Jasmine lied smoothly. "I just remembered. Got a call this morning." She kissed him goodbye with practiced affection. Inside, she was fuming. Paris. That was supposed to be our honeymoon destination. The plans were mine. The suggestions were mine. And now Anita was enjoying it in her place. Not for long. She boarded her flight to Paris with only one thing in mind: getting Melvin back, and making Anita pay. Melvin and Anita landed in Paris to a peaceful morning. Their designated driver picked them up and dropped them off at a luxury hotel. Anita gazed out of the car window in awe, stunned by the beautiful streets, the soft colors of early dawn, and the towering architecture. Melvin checked them in, and a bellboy brought up their luggage. Anita followed him silently through the hotel, wondering what kind of guest house she'd be staying in. But when Melvin opened the door, it wasn't a guest room. It was a luxury suite. One bedroom. One shared space. Anita's eyes widened. Melvin set down his suitcase and unpacked a few of his clothes. "You can use half of the closet," he said casually. She didn't respond. She was too stunned to speak. He turned to face her, noticing the bright gleam in her eyes and the way her mouth slightly parted as if trying to ask something. Her cheeks were flushed. The girl was clearly overwhelmed. He took a few steps toward her and tilted his head. "You're quiet." "I'm just grateful, sir," she managed to say, hands fiddling nervously. "No, I don't think that's it." His voice lowered, teasing. "Why don't you tell me what's gotten you so excited?" Anita stared at Melvin with flushed cheeks as she realized she had given her emotions away and had no answer to his question. Melvin waited for her reply, but she looked down and refused to make eye contact with him. When he realized she was feeling embarrassed, he shook his head and went back to unpacking his bag. Sometimes Anita surprised him with her actions. She smiled when it wasn't necessary and felt excited for reasons best known to her. There were also times her emotions changed so quickly, Within the twinkling of an eye, she moved from happiness to sadness. He would never understand what went on in her mind. Perhaps because she was young and had been through so much, it was difficult for her to express her feelings accurately. He left her alone in the bedroom and went to the living room, where he sat on the couch and began to work on his laptop. After a while, he returned to the bedroom and noticed that she had fallen asleep. He quietly took a document from his bag and went back to the living room. After a few hours, he checked the time and realized they would soon have to go out. He decided to take a bath and get ready. When he returned to the bedroom, Anita was not in sight. He was just about to check the balcony when the bathroom door opened and she came out. Anita stared at Melvin in shock, a short towel tied around her chest. She hadn't expected to see him inside the room. Melvin's eyes involuntarily lingered on her thighs, smooth and glowing. Seeing her like this awoke something in him he hadn't felt in a long time. He thought back to that day at the black market when he first saw her, raw, helpless, but undeniably beautiful. Now, she was standing in front of him looking even more alluring. He was a man with self-control, but even he had limits. His breath hitched, and he quickly looked away, knowing he was on the verge of crossing a dangerous line. Anita didn't know what to do. She considered running back into the bathroom but was scared he might need it. She couldn't move forward either because he was standing right there. What surprised her the most was his look. He didn't look angry or distant. He looked different. And she didn't know what it meant. Melvin realized he was going to lose control if he stayed. Without saying anything at first, he turned and walked away. At the door, he said, "I'll just wait outside until you're done." Anita stood still for a moment, confused. Why didn't he just use the bathroom? She quickly dried her body and dressed, not wanting to keep him waiting. Outside, Melvin stood taking deep breaths. This wasn't good. They were supposed to be in Paris for a month, and if he was already reacting this way, he was bound to make a mistake he would regret. Anita trusted him, and worse, he was going to send her away after their agreement. If he gave in now, it would feel like taking advantage of her. When Anita stepped out of the room, she saw him standing outside and said gently, "I'm done with the bathroom, sir. I'm sorry about earlier. I didn't know you were in the room." Melvin turned slightly and gave a soft smile. "It's fine. I'll just book another room so I don't inconvenience you anymore." Anita blinked in surprise. "Have I upset you in any way, sir?" Melvin smiled again and shook his head. "No, Anita. You haven't. I just want to give you your privacy. Also, I'm hosting an inauguration party later this evening and I'd like you to come with me. I'll be heading out in an hour to shop. I want you to pick out something new to wear." Anita nodded, watching as he walked away. She wasn't happy about him moving out, but she told herself that at least he was still close. She wondered why he wanted her to pick new clothes when the ones she had were already elegant and perfect. Was this party like the one back home? Would they be acting affectionate in public again? She found herself looking forward to it. She lived for those moments, even if it was just acting. After booking the room next door, Melvin returned to pack his things. Anita stood to the side and watched him in silence. As he left the suite with his final bag, he noticed someone suspiciously familiar near the hallway. But before he could get a proper look, she quickly slipped into a room and shut the door. He paused for a moment. Could it have been Jasmine? No. He was probably imagining things. They had been here together once before. It was easy for his mind to see her in strangers. Inside the room, Jasmine leaned against the door, clutching her chest and breathing heavily. "That was so close," she whispered. She couldn't believe Melvin had almost seen her. She'd booked a room nearby to monitor his movements. When she realized that he and Anita weren't even staying in the same suite, her heart leapt. This was her chance. It was obvious. Melvin didn't love Anita. Jasmine was certain of it. And she was going to use that to her full advantage. Her goal was clear. Get rid of Anita and return to Melvin's side as the rightful Mrs. Grey. After getting ready, Anita sat in the living room, eating from a bowl of fruit as she waited for Melvin. When he knocked on her door, she quickly set the fruit aside and went out to meet him. She smiled warmly at him, and he returned her smile before leading her out of the hotel. Melvin drove them to a luxurious shopping mall. Just as they were about to enter, his phone rang. He checked the caller ID and frowned slightly. "Go in and start picking out the clothes you like," he told Anita. "I'll join you once I'm done with this call." Anita nodded and walked into the mall. It was grander than she had imagined, and the people inside were dressed to the nines. She looked down at her simple gown and sandals, suddenly feeling self-conscious. It was obvious this place catered to the elite, and she couldn't help but feel out of place. As she began to walk towards the clothing section, her gaze stayed on the floor, and she didn't notice the woman approaching until she bumped into her. Anita stumbled back and fell on her butt. Looking up, she saw a tall, glamorous woman towering above her, glaring down in disgust. "I'm so sorry," Anita said quickly as she got up. "I wasn't looking at." "Shut the hell up, you hillbilly," the woman snapped. "How dare you touch me? What are you doing here? Did you come to steal?" People in the store began turning to look at them. Anita stood frozen, ashamed and flustered. The woman grabbed her arm tightly. "You look like a church rat. Are you here to beg for scraps? Who let you into a place like this?" "I'm not a thief or a beggar," Anita whispered, tears forming in her eyes. The store manager rushed out. The woman turned to him and said loudly, "Do you let beggars and thieves walk freely in here? If she's still here in 5 minutes, I'll never shop here again." The manager barely looked at Anita before turning to his staff. "Get her out of here."